There we go. Back again. My. So, before we start today, I wanted to do a little bit of almost a recap, like a moment's pause to think about where we are. Because I've had like this weird, and I've realized the way to phrase, because a lot of people seem to think that I was like reading the Quran because I genuinely wanted to understand what people believed and like understand another way of getting close to God. No, I wanted to know what was wrong with you. That's that. I wanted to know how is it possible for people to be this stupid. I want to know what is the mistake. I did not come into this with good faith. Obviously not. Just to be absolutely clear, there is no good faith here. There is only bad faith. However, however, what I do suspect, because I'm bad faith about all religions, so what I do suspect, and what I did suspect, was that it would probably end up becoming quite like the other religions, where I go, well, this was clearly a clever man, a clever philosopher, a clever person, a wise person who said some wise things, and then they were surrounded by a bunch of narcissistic idiots. Um, and for a moment, I was like, I didn't think that was going to happen. For at the very beginning, the first like 8 surahs, I was like, oh yeah, this is obviously just like all of the other religions. And there was a little bit of a downswing, a little bit of a upsetness. And then the last one, especially when I was reflecting over the last one, the last couple of days, it does seem to me, especially in this context of like people saying Islam is the religion of peace, despite it honestly being very clear that it is written having so many dictums on war. It's like it's like the other religions, it's a war religion. God is a war god. This is the god of the Abrahamic religions is a war god, a storm god, a war god, kind of evolved over time. Um, but it does seem to me, a kind of impression I have is that, and I expressed this in the last one, the last reading, that maybe actually on some level Muhammad did want peace. He was preaching peace. He was a good, decent philosopher. And but he was unfortunately surrounded by a bunch of people who saw him being like, oh, people like this message, let's use it to unify people to wage war on our enemies. That's what it seems like. Unfortunately, I don't think we'll be delving deeper into this interpretation quite today, because I did preemptively read the introduction, which goes, the title of this surah, by the way, The Believers, a Meccan surah which stresses that the believers are the ones who will succeed, whereas the disbelievers will be punished for their arrogance and derision. Several proofs are given of God's oneness and his power, and the inevitability of the resurrection emphasized. Oh, exciting. Proofs. Oh, proofs. Every other proof has been tragically disappointing, but maybe today we don't get absolute nonsense circular reasoning. I am true because I'm true. How could I lie about God? That's what we've gotten so far, but maybe today it'll be different. Oh, but let's see. Successful indeed are the believers, those who humble themselves in prayer, those who avoid idle talk. Ooh, I like that. Those who pay alms tax. Means purification and growth. Paying alms tax and charity are forms of purifying one's wealth. Fair enough. Those who guard their chastity. Oh my goodness. Literally private parts. Those who guard their private parts. That's a funnier. I prefer the other. I prefer the literal Honestly, so much more. I would have had so much more enjoyment if I only got the literal translation all of the time. Except with their wives or those bondwomen in their possession. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Let's check. See footnote for 4.3. Okay. For then they are free from blame. Fun fact: don't rape your slaves. I know we don't take slaves anymore in modern societies, but don't rape your slaves. Pro tip. But whoever seeks beyond that are the transgressors. Whoever seeks that are the transgressors. The believers are also those who are true to their trusts and covenants, and those who are properly observant of their prayers. You can do one without the other. These are the ones who will be awarded paradise as their own. They will be there forever. The highest place of paradise, indeed. those who properly observant, those trusting. I mean, it seems like it's just sort of saying it's the highest place is probably just a what's it called, literary device. It's sort of just being exaggerating a little bit because this isn't. The believers are also, I guess, those who humble themselves in prayer. Not very impressive. Avoiding idle talk. I like that. Good. Avoiding small talk. Guarding chastity. Well, now we're getting a little bit. Guarding your private parts. I enjoy. Except with bondwomen in their possession. You can't own people. That's bad. That's morally outrageous. But yeah, so maybe it is actually the highest place because there are many specific iterations. It's not just the normal, well, if you pray enough and if you hold true to your word, then you will go to heaven. They will be there forever. And indeed, we created humankind from an extract of clay, then placed each human as a sperm drop in a secure place. Then we developed the drop into a clinging clot, then developed the clot into a lump of flesh, then developed the lump into bones, then clothed the bones with flesh, then we brought it into being as a new creation. This happens when the spirit is breathed into the embryo. Again, this is a good pro-abortion passage. This respects the idea that the soul brought it into being as a new creation. That only happens when, as the footnote says, when the spirit is breathed into the embryo. And as is described here, that happens last. First, it's a clinging, first it's a sperm drop, obviously. That's only half of the genetic information. They didn't know that at the time, but we know that now. Then comes a clinging clot, a lump of flesh, a lump into bones, clothe the bones with flesh, and then, and only then, does the spirit become into it. Only after the bones are clad in flesh is it alive. Which is good. I mean, that allows quite a lot of abortions. Until quite a long time into, well, I mean, not necessarily, I don't exactly know. I'm not a medicine person. I'm not a doctor. I don't know exactly when that happens. But that does seem to open up the possibility, the understanding, which I believe was, I think this sort of anti-abortion thing is a more modern thing. So it does make sense to me that the people of the time when having miscarriages was much more common would have had a sort of a more understanding relationship to this concept of abortions, because most of the time they just couldn't control it. And of course, when you have very limited knowledge about how things work, as they did at the time, you would obviously not try to sort of specify. But here we go. Here is a good enough specification, good enough understanding. To be fair, also I've heard this been quoted as proof, which, I mean, it's in the chapter about proof. Knowing this isn't particularly impressive, nor is it technically accurate. I mean, embryo, like I said, I'm not a doctor, but as I understand it, the development of a human fetus is a little bit gradual and a little bit all at the same time. It's not like suddenly, it doesn't sort of build us up like we build houses, where you need the structure first and then you add the flesh to the structure, right? It builds all of the things at the same time, growing outwards. So blessed is God, the best of creators. After that you will surely die. True, at some point you will. Then on the day of judgment you will be resurrected. Less surely. And indeed we created above you 7 levels of heaven. We are never unmindful of our creation. We send down rain from the sky in perfect measure, causing it to soak into the earth, and we are surely able to take it away. I mean, that's also obviously false. I mean, I know it's sort of praising God is a part of this whole nonsense, but in perfect measure, floods happen. Clearly, it's not always in perfect measure. But God always knows best. God always works in mysterious ways. He's punishing you for your sins. It's sort of, this is the problem with anthropomorphizing the forces of nature. You come to accept, and I mean, it's useful if you don't have as much control over nature as we do in the modern world. We can decide which areas flood. We can accommodate this. We can predict this. These are things we have the power to understand and interact with in ways to preserve our own welfare and well-being. But of course, if you don't have this power, it makes sense that you just need to sort of, like my favorite prayer, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, etc., etc. Well, actually, let's do the whole thing. Grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the strength to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. And that's kind of the like it. The serenity part is very clearly being shown from the text, but the they, at the time this text was written and recited and revealed, or whatever you want to describe it as, uh, we did not have the same amount of strength. We did not have the ability to influence reality as much. We did not have the strength to change certain things. What we now do, and sort of the serenity shouldn't be sort of as absolute as it was at that time, because in this case specifically, the idea of floods, the idea of perfect measure of rain, actually we can go a little bit beyond that and say, well, actually sometimes there's more, sometimes there's less. We don't need to simply accept what God gives us. God gives us lemons and we make lemonade. We don't say, wow, these lemons really are bitter. No, we mix them with sugar and water and make something good out of it. We take what God has given us and use it. We are more powerful than the people were when they wrote this. With it, we produce for you gardens of palm trees and grapevines, in which there are abundant fruits, and from which you may eat, as well as olive trees which grow at Mount Sinai, providing oil and a condiment to eat. Ooh, we even get a little bit of luxury. And there is certainly a lesson for you in cattle, from whose bellies we give you milk to drink, and in them are many other benefits from you, and from them you may eat. Interesting. Interesting, especially because most of the world is lactose intolerant. But I suppose the lesson here, I mean, it's an interesting lesson because mammals produce milk. Not very exciting. What's the lesson? The lesson being that animals that are similar to us produce food that is edible to us. And you are carried upon some of them and upon ships. Ships which we definitely built ourselves. We bred the cattle ourselves as well. But if you look up aurochs, A-U-R-O? I'm not sure how you spell it actually. Aurochs? Auroch? I don't know. But the precursors to modern cows. Very much not the kind of creature you would try to milk. I think that was probably something they did after domestication. Indeed, we sent Noah to his people. He declared, O my people, worship God alone. You have no God other than him. Will you not then fear him? But the disbelieving chiefs of his people said to the masses, this is only a human like you, who wants to be superior to you. Had God willed, he could have easily sent down angels instead. We have never heard of this in the history of our forefathers. He is simply insane, so bear with him for a while. So he may recover from its madness. I mean, that's nice, honestly. Like if your grandparents are senile and old and don't really know what's happening around them, I think it's commendable to simply bear with their insanity for a little bit. And also, like, yeah, makes sense. If God willed, he could have sent down something else. Human beings are fallible. Human beings make mistakes all the time. Why didn't God send us a little bit more believable of a witness? Noah prayed, my Lord, help me, because they have denied me. Yes, exactly. Which of us is the unhumble one? Which of us is the arrogant one? They have denied me. I know the me is in the weird quotation marks, indicating that it's sort of added to ease interpretation. But this is the point. I mean, this is like the Freudian slip here. This shows that the person who translated this understands that it is Noah who is upset that people reject his version of events. They reject him as a prophet. And for that, we are accused of arrogance. Because it was we who rejected him who were arrogant, not Noah who proclaimed that he knew the word of God. That is the opposite of how this works. And that is why I have such a big problem with religious people. They come at me and they say, no, this isn't my opinions. This isn't my biases. This isn't my bigotry. I'm not the one who hates people. God hates people. God tells me that I should hate gay people. God tells me to treat women differently than men. God tells me all of these evil things that I should do to my slaves. People take the views they have, the bigotries, the hatreds, the negative, the whatever biases they have, all of the fallible ideals they have, and instead of being able to engage with them critically, they say, no, 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 no. This isn't my beliefs. This is God's beliefs. God, you're arguing with God. Are you so arrogant to argue with God? No, I am so arrogant as to argue with you. I am so uh, humble as to reject your arrogance. That's what's happening. I am being told that this is the word of God, and I'm rejecting that. I'm not rejecting God, I'm rejecting the people who tell me that this is the word of God. Very important distinction there. So we inspired him. Build the ark under our watchful eyes and directions. Then, when our command comes and the oven bursts with water, take on. Okay, I'll read that after. Take on board a pair from every species along with your family, except those against whom the decree to drown has already been passed. Except those people who don't believe you. That's what it means. Let's translate this. Because how would Noah know which people are decreed to drown? Oh, those are the people who reject him. The arrogant people who reject Noah. Insisting on humility from your prophets is not arrogance. And do not plead with me for those who have done wrong, for they will surely be drowned. Do not plead with me, even. Huh. See? Word crime, I guess. But do not plead with me. Do not plead for the lives of your loved ones, like Abraham did. Abraham pleaded for the life of his father. Had to accept it eventually, but still. Noah is given a signal that once the water gushes out from a particular oven and the flood is about to begin, can be translated out, the fountains of the earth gushed forth. So yeah, presumably a specific point where once that started flooding. To be clear, this is as good moment as any to describe what the flood myth is about. So roughly 10,000 years ago, give or take a few thousand years, the last ice age ended, or technically we're still in an ice age, we're in an whatever. Ice ages are defined by there being ice on the poles or whatever. But when that happened, before that there was a lot of ice in Europe, in where I live. The place I currently live would have been under several kilometers of ice. This ice melted and flowed into the ocean, and the sea levels rose. This took thousands of years. The sea level rise was about this much per year. Depending on when, I think it was about this much at max and this much at the minimum. But the sea level did rise. So, in context, what happened with the Noah thing? Presumably there was flooding. He was presumably living near a coastal settlement, not like necessarily all the way down the coast, presumably by a river. And then he saw, well, this area which is usually dry is now flooding. This is the sign that the flood has come. And of course, he would have had plenty of signs to see this. This, again, like the prophets are presumably, from my sense, wise people. A wise person who saw that the world was flooding, surrounded by rank idiots, like most people are in most times of history, including this one. But wise people surrounded by these idiots, and because he struggled to sort of explain. He didn't know the forces of nature, or all he knew was the water seems to be rising. There seems to be more flooding every year. There's more and more flooding. I think there's something bad is about to happen, and they go, "Oh, he's crazy. No, he's just a crazy pants. He thinks he's just a doomsayer. He thinks everything's going wrong all the time. Don't listen to him. Just humor him maybe for a while, but who cares? He's wrong. He's a crazy man." And then eventually, of course, the floods kept happening, kept getting worse and worse and worse, until eventually the area in which they lived was flooded to the point of inhabitability. Presumably, like if they were very close to the coast, they could have been completely flooded, completely submerged, like these primitive one-story houses that most people lived in the beginning. But eventually, And you could even have like one of the floods was so extreme that he actually floated on a boat down the river with his livestock. That is also not an unreasonable thing. And of course, after this happened, he had to sort of comfort himself about all of the family members, all of his friends he'd left behind. Now they were the wicked. They had done wrong. They had been the decree to drown had already been passed. He had to comfort himself in some way. It's God is very much this tool for when you don't really know. Like we like negatively describe things as a God of the gaps argument, where you just sort of like most of this is, where you just sort of insert God into where you don't know anymore. And like the areas where, like people told me that, well, everything started like the beginning of the universe. We had a big bang and everything started there. I don't know. All we know is that we can't see any further than the Big Bang. There might have been something before that. We don't have the capacity to know that right now. And so, sort of saying that God was the thing that came before that beginning, that doesn't necessarily follow. That's just a God of the gaps argument. That's just saying, well, we don't know what's there, so therefore God was there. And but my point in bringing this up, it makes sense when you do have very limited knowledge and you're trying to make sense of a very complex universe, to use a little bit of God. It's the same way dark matter and dark energy, these are placeholder concepts, right? They might be actual matter out in the universe that is pulling things together, but all we know is that there's something invisible, which, hence dark, which works as matter, and like it increases gravity, and it's not spread out where matter is. It's not just that matter is stronger, gravity is stronger than we thought it is. This seems to be spread out like around the galaxy, making the galaxy spin faster than it should, the outside of the galaxy spin faster than it should. And so, in that sense, like we are using God of the gaps arguments, and it's a useful thing to do when you have limited understanding of things, to sort of, well, let's model it, let's just put a label on it and then move on. And unfortunately, it becomes a problem as soon as it becomes about ethics and morality. Then when you and those with you have settled in the ark, say, all praise is for God who saved us from the wrongdoing people. And pray, my Lord, allow me a blessed landing, for you are the best accommodator. Surely in this are lessons. And we always put people to the test. What? What? In my scenario, where over the whole of Noah's lifetime, and he like spoke to his grandparents, and they also confirmed like actually the floodings have been more and more extreme these years. Over the whole of his lifetime, he realized that the flooding was getting more and more extreme, to the point where eventually he builds himself a boat and sails down the river out to sea to resettle. In this, what are the lessons? This isn't more or less believable than the story we're being told here. All we're being told that's different here is that, well, God spoke to him to give him this lesson. That could have happened even if God didn't speak to him. He could have believed that God spoke to him even if God didn't speak to him. That's why I reference all of these madmen, all of these soothsayers all over the world, doomsayers all over the world, because these people all believe that God is speaking to them, and we all accept that God isn't actually speaking to them. So, like, the only difference between this story and my interpretation is Noah's word, Noah's insistence that he did this because of God and not because of his own cunning. I mean, very humble of him, to be fair. Then we raised another generation after them, and sent to them a messenger from among themselves, declaring, worship God alone. You have no God other than him. Will you not then fear him? No. And do not kneel to tyrants. But the chiefs of his people who disbelieved denied the meeting with God in the hereafter, and were spoiled by the worldly luxuries we had provided for them, said to the masses, this is only a human like you. He eats what you eat, and drinks what you drink. And if you ever obey a human like yourselves, then you would certainly be losers. I mean, obey... yeah, if you ever obey a human, that's not... Like, the humility here is... serve me, serve this man who proclaims that he comes from God. This man is humble because he's saying, Where is how is it possible to go through these kinds of mental gymnastics? It's really fascinating, honestly, on a weird level. It's like genuinely the most arrogant thing you could possibly say. My views come from God. They're unassailable. They're true divine words. And you're arrogant for not believing in me. How is it possible not to see that for the rank hypocrisy it is? I don't know. Let's read on. Maybe we'll find out. Does he promise you that once you are dead and reduced to dust and bones, you will be brought forth alive? Impossible. Simply impossible is what you are promised. Yeah? There is nothing beyond our worldly life. We die, others are born, and none will be resurrected. He is no more than a man who has fabricated a lie about God, and we will never believe him. Good man. Good criticism. The messenger prayed, My Lord, help me because they have denied me. Again, the rank arrogance of the messenger. God responded, Soon they will be truly regretful. I mean, okay. I mean, honest, what more can I say? Then the mighty blast overtook them with justice, and we reduced them to rubble. So away with the wrongdoing people. Then we okay, so it's going to continue on this, but what can I say? Honestly, it's so horrendous. Literally, we have so much of just a simple, he's just a man, he's just telling lies about God, you shouldn't believe him. Why believe him about this resurrection? Oh, well, because we've already implied that actually the problem was they were spoiled by worldly luxuries. But the important thing is they denied the meeting of God. They denied the messenger's meeting of God. They denied that this messenger had personal connection to God. And for that, they were the arrogant ones, not the person claiming to have absolute access to God. It is shocking. It is shocking indeed. Do you not use your reason? Then we raised other generations after them. No people can advance their doom, nor can they delay it. Then we sent our messengers in succession. Whenever a messenger came to his people, they denied him, so we destroyed them, one after the other, reducing them to cautionary tales. So away with the people who refused to believe. I mean, proof. Away with the people who refused. I mean, so many people in past have been destroyed, both people who thought they were God-fearing and people who didn't. Both people who rejected the prophets and people who accepted the prophets. What kind of delusion is this? Then we sent Moses and his brother Aaron with our signs. Honestly, the brother Aaron, to be fair, we shouldn't use that as proof. Somebody tells us about miracles that happened thousands of years ago, that's not proofs. But if for them at the time, that's fair enough. That's actually, for once, actually God doesn't just say, well, soon they will be truly regretful. I mean, for once, God wasn't just a petulant moron. For once, God actually gave some proofs, instead of just saying, well, you'll be right in the end, because they'll be destroyed. I mean, can you not imagine this scenario in your head of this madman who genuinely believes that he was saved because God preferred him? In fact, can you not imagine that most of the people who survived through some random chance feels like it was a miracle? That's what people usually do. They feel like they were specifically chosen by God, just because of random chance allowed them to live. It's this ability, it's Skinner's pigeons. Humans are Skinner's pigeons. It's seeing patterns in the patternless. It is seeing patterns in the random, in the noise, in the static of reality, in the chaos of nature. Seeing order where there is none. But indeed, then we sent Moses and his brother Aaron with our signs and compelling proof to Pharaoh and his chiefs, but they behaved arrogantly and were a tyrannical people. No disagreement there. Well, I mean, his chiefs were, according to the earlier stories, fine, but they argued, will we believe in two humans like ourselves, whose people are slaves to us? So they rejected them both, and so were among those destroyed. And we certainly gave Moses the scripture. Certainly it did. There absolutely couldn't be any lie about that. Definitely couldn't have made that up in order to lead a slave revolt. That's obviously impossible. So perhaps his people could be rightly guided by him. So perhaps his people could be rightly guided by him. That's why he invented. Sorry, that's why he was revealed. That's why he was given this. He didn't invent it. He was given this information so that he could rule over. Sorry, so that they could be rightly ruled by him. Sorry. What a. It's honestly, it feels like translating the Quran and rewriting the Quran should be more important to Muslims for understanding, for critical thinking, than actually just memorizing. Tragically, on a note of that, this is going to seem really randomly, but I'm going to say it before I forget and never bring it up again. I've noticed that one of the things that sort of was one of the metaphors used about the sort of morality of the Quran and sort of God punishing us afterwards is used of this metaphor of a test, like a teacher giving us a test. And the Quran is like the answers to the test. We're given the answers, we practice the answers, and then the test is our life. This is not how tests work. That's not how you learn things. That's not how understanding works. And I'll use math tests because math tests are the best demonstration of this. When you are given a math test, you don't memorize all of the answers beforehand. You don't come in there with okay, I have to remember which one was the answer to this one, which one was the answer to that. No, you remember method, a means. How do I solve problems like this? That's what you have, the tools to solve these kinds of problems. That's not what the Quran gives us. The Quran tells us, or sometimes it does give a little bit. Most of the time, it just gives you dictums to follow. It just tells you this is what's true, follow it or suffer. That's not how learning works. That's not how tests work. If this were actually given to us to understand ethics, to be more moral, not just to pretend to be moral to avoid punishment, but actually to understand what we're doing and act according to good principles, then you would be taught how to derive these principles, how to solve problems like this one, not just simply told what the solution is. Remember this solution. Remember the solution. No. Given the tools. And in the same way, I really wish people would engage with their ideas by rewriting them. This is not just a religion thing, by the way, and not just Islam. I think Islam, honestly, seems to capture all of the things I have the most problem with in modern society and this modern sophistry. But but it is a universal problem where people think, no, actually no, let's not phrase it differently. Let's not use those words. Oh, that's not what I said, actually. Now, specifying which words to use. Words have positive and negative connotations, sure, and I understand you only want to use the positive connotations about your thing, but critical thinking requires you to be able to use other connotations. Because if you can only use positive connotations about your thing, you will never understand the subtle nuances. You will always blindly overwhelm yourself with this idea that everything it says must be true and good. And even when you have a misunderstanding of what it says, even if there was some corruption, even if there was some point in between you and your understanding of God's revelation, at that point you should understand that being able to describe your own views, and they are yours, they are not God's, they are your views. As soon as you have them, they are yours. Don't blame God for your malicious bigotry and hatred. Blame yourself. And in order to actually critically examine your own beliefs, I very much recommend this tool, this trick of simply phrasing things the opposite way. And in the same way, this is what I'm doing with the Quran. I'm showing you this trick that critical thinkers in the West have been able to do for thousands of years. But that was a little bit of a good rant. A little bit, something I wanted to get off my chest. Oh, good. I'm gonna give myself some poison first. More poison. I saw what motivated me actually to start the recording today was this absolute baller of a human being who was lighting a cigar with this page of the Quran. And obviously, I know I've threatened it a lot of times, but I can't do that to books. Books are precious. Books are precious. No matter what, no matter how much I hate what's in them, I think books are precious. Um, like I want them to exist simply so I can know what they say. But this baller of a human being lights up his cigar with a page tore from the book to a crowd of screeching idiots um, who can't cope. Like, respect your religion? No. Ideas do not deserve respect. People, kind of, probably, most of the time. Ideas, never. Never respect ideas. That is always a bad thing. But let's go on to the proofs. And we made the son of Mary and his mother a sign, and gave them refuge on high ground, a suitable place for rest with flowing water. O messengers, eat from what is good and lawful, and act righteously. Indeed, I fully know what you do. Surely this religion of yours is only one, and I am your Lord, so fear me alone. Yet the people have divided into different sects, each rejoicing in what they have. So leave them, O Prophet, in their heedlessness for a while. Do they think, since we provide them with wealth and children, that we hasten to honor them with all kinds of goods? No, they are not aware. Surely those who tremble in awe of their Lord, and who believe in the revelations of their Lord, and who associate none with their Lord, and who do whatever good they do with their hearts fearful, knowing they will return to their Lord. I might read that afterwards, but it's fascinating. It is they who race to do good deeds, always taking the lead. Yes, yes, finally! Because this is what I've suggested every time I've read it, every time I've been upset at this nonsense association, and it is still a nonsense association. Let's be clear, it's a nonsense association that belief in God is necessary precondition for doing good. However, belief that you will always be held accountable for your actions, that can be viewed as a necessary precondition. It is they who race to do good deeds. People who think they will always be judged for everything they do. I think that's probably an unhealthy thing. I think you might actually I think actually what ends up happening isn't that people race to do good deeds. What ends up happening is they race to rationalize their own actions. That's kind of the problem, like with not just with religion. Like the problem with religion is it gives people this. No, it's God. I hide behind God. Like if I'm saying, well, democracy is a good thing and economic liberalism, and like if I hide behind Adam Smith and if I hide behind like great thinkers, great people, then they are still people. They're still fallible. I might still be wrong. There is very obviously I might still be wrong. But if you hide behind God, then you can pretend that you can never be wrong about your understanding of reality. But this idea here is that if you are always to be held accountable, if you always believe you will be held accountable, then it logically makes sense. You will always try your best, try to be your best. I think it seems to be wrong. It seems to be incorrect from what we know. I'm basing this a lot on why people believe weird things. The introduction to that very good book by Dr. Michael Shermer says that the original title was Why Does Smart People Believe Weird Things? And the thing he had noticed was that smart people, like you'd think that smart people are actually better at knowing what true things. Like most people think that that's part of being smart. That smarter people are better at knowing what's true and false. But actually, what happens is smarter people are also better at rationalizing their own mistakes. So I suspect very much that this isn't actually true, and we have quite a lot of evidence that it isn't actually true because quite a lot of the most pious, most self-insistingly good people, in fact, it is the people who insist most strongly that they are good, that are most prone to evil. It is the people who convince themselves that whatever they do is good and righteous. And I think that if you are constantly fearful of the Lord, if you're constantly fearful that you're being judged all the time, instead of ending up sort of reflecting on it and being like, well, actually, I think I did something wrong, then I should probably change for the future, instead of constantly reflecting on things like that, which you should, and embracing this uncertainty that you will have your whole life, you should embrace this. You should understand you have this. Instead of embracing the fact that you are a fallible human living on a material earth with only glimpses of God, if that, that should give you the ability, that should give you enough reason to critically examine your beliefs continuously. However, that doesn't seem to happen. What seems to happen is that people seem to go, well, no, it must have been, I must have done that because God must have permitted me to do that because it's a good thing. And that's absolutely not the case. Even in the context of this text, even if I believe everything that has been written so far, it is at a certain point you have to understand that your actions are on you. They're not on God. You cannot blame God for your actions, and nor can you say, well, actually, my hatred, my bigotry, my intolerance towards other people is justified by my religion. That's why we don't respect it. This religion is homophobic and sexist. That's why we don't respect it. That's why it doesn't deserve respect. And these two statements are just statements of fact. I think it just treats men and women differently. That's sexist. And that's like the inheritance things. Oh, but I've gotten loads of rationalizations for this, but all of the rationalizations simply insist that it's a good thing to treat men and women differently. Still sexist. Homophobic doesn't approve of anal sex at all. Anti-sodomite even. Like the old religious laws in, I think some of them are actually still in effect, but the old religious laws insisting on this is the only type of sex you're allowed to have. We're a little bit modern. We understand that sex is just a human desire. But this stating that this text is sexist and homophobic is simply matters of fact. And as such, stating these things is also disrespectful. So all of the other disrespectful things, honestly, par for the course. Because they might also be statements of fact. They are at least statements of what I believe, what I feel when I'm reading this. Perhaps that is the most wisdom I could possibly give anyone, to understand that when I'm reading this, you are seeing my raw, uncut emotional reaction. You are not seeing somebody who was strictly and logically planning out his critical assault on Islam. You're not seeing someone who's trying to understand the full depth of it. You're simply seeing somebody react. This is reaction content. Reaction content to Islam. But yeah, I'm not sure it is the case. Though I understand, I very much empathize with the belief that if you believe you are constantly being held accountable, like this, like all of the other ones kind of seem to be supporting that, seem to be supporting this last sentence. Do whatever good they do with their hearts fearful, knowing they will return to their Lord, right? The understanding of always being answerable, that everything they do is always should always be judged. Like all of your actions should be judged. I think perhaps it would have been useful to encourage people to judge themselves a little bit, and sort of understand. And it is useful to have the sort of most repentant, most forgiving God, because then people should be encouraged to reflect on their actions. But let's read this one. His footnote. It is reported in an authentic narration collected at At-Tirmidhi that Aisha, the Prophet's wife, asked him if this verse refers to those who steal or drink alcohol. The Prophet answered, no, it refers to those who pray, fast, and donate, but are afraid that their deeds are rejected because they are not good enough. Then he recited the last part of the verse, it is they who race to do good deeds, always taking the lead. What a strange... I mean, we know she was a child, so I guess that explains why she asks such a strange question. But yeah, no, that's a fair answer. It's reasonable to say, it's not about those who steal those who do evil, right? Those who do drinking alcohol shouldn't, very, very annoying. Like the sins you do against yourself versus the sins you do against other people. That other people should be allowed to judge you for the sins you commit against other people. They should not be allowed to judge you for the sins you commit against yourself. If you want to ruin your own life, that's your own prerogative. God might have some issues with it in the afterlife, but if you want to ruin your life right now, by all means. Drink until you're drunk, fall over, do drugs, whatever, hurt yourself in whatever way you feel is most appropriate. You're right to ruin your own life. But indeed, of course, God might have an issue with it afterwards, but humans, other people, should not take issue with it during. I can understand why they would. It's like, I made this metaphor before, but if you genuinely believe somebody is standing in the way of an oncoming train, I do understand the urge to push them away, but you should also like respect their right to believe that they can outrun the train or whatever nonsense they think they can do. It is a respecting of other people's freedom is an important thing to do. That said, I've heard that watching these videos is like watching a train wreck, and I'm glad. I'm glad that you can enjoy this in the same way I do. We never require of any. So after this statement, it is they who race to do good deeds, always taking the lead. After this very interesting concept, we never require of any soul more than what it can afford, and with us is a record which speaks the truth. None will be wronged. Also very good, very good. Like never require more of, and this is like, this actually just supports the thing I was saying. Why shouldn't we as other people judge people for like drinking alcohol? Well, because we don't know what they can afford. God knows, but we don't. We don't know how much pain and suffering they're going through. We don't know their path to God. We don't know, like, sure, you might say it's a straight path, but some of us start further ahead than others. And those people who start further behind you, you should have sympathy for, not hatred and bigotry and criticism for. You should understand that everyone needs a different level of understanding, and God is the only one who is capable of giving this appropriate level of understanding. That's why we don't judge people for ruining their own lives. We can only judge people for ruining the lives of others. We can only judge them for stealing from each other or hurting each other in any other way. We cannot, in fact, say, well, this person did a sin against God, did a sin against his own self, did a sin against the gift of life God had given him. That's up for God to decide. That's not up for us to decide. That has to be understood. And I think that, honestly, I think that most Western Muslims know this. I think most Muslims who can understand me reasonably well speaking English understand that there should be a distinction between the laws of men and the laws of God, and who gets to decide, or who gets to judge. That should be this distinction should. But I think this distinction should be made more. I think this distinction should be reflected on more. Especially to atheists. Like, it seems to me that a lot of people, like a lot of Muslims, like preaching or like trying to proselytize their faith, seem to have this impression that if they admit some level of nuance and gray zones and uncertainty and like, well, maybe we shouldn't do exactly that. And like this sort of nuanced understanding of reality seems to be something that Muslims don't really want to get into. They seem to want to like present a strong face, present a strong. I don't think that's the expression, but present a strong position, present it as though they are confident and certain and definitely know the things. And that, as I'm sure you have noticed, if you do that to me, and if you do that to any philosopher, especially any Western philosopher, you will show yourself that's a bad thing. If you present this certain forward-facing, this clearly I know exactly what God wants of me, then people like me go, oh, well, you're clearly evil. Because a person who insists that they know the truth, all of the most evil people in all of history have all insisted that they know the truth, and everyone who doesn't agree with them is a liar. This is just par for the course. So these kinds of sentiments I very much appreciate. They sort of give a little bit of a hint that this could be a religion of peace, even though I don't think it currently is. But the hearts of those who disbelieve are oblivious to all of this. Well, damn it, I just spent so much time praising it. It refers to the believer's good deeds. Okay, fair enough. The good deeds specifically being the sort of praying and all. We can double check, just because I think it's 57 to 62. Yeah, okay, it was those. It was literally... Again, I have problems with this sort of... Wait, did I scroll past it? Yeah, why didn't I doesn't keep it open? Interesting. I think that my interpretation, being oblivious to all of this, should like the thing where you're oblivious to isn't necessarily like being fair. Like there was mention of things earlier. Like let's remember 2363. Um, no, I mean there were mentions earlier of specific actions. Oh yeah, it was in the beginning. Let's not scroll all the way back to that. But like the specific actions you do before God, and like sure, I am oblivious to the sort of ethical nature of this, but yeah, the idea that what's important here is trembling, but being fearful of God is what's important. It really implies that the people who interpret this text don't actually understand ethics and have no interest in understanding ethics. They have an interest in forcing a set of rules on people. They don't want to instruct people in how to understand how to be good people. They don't give, like, to use Jesus as an example. I hate using Jesus as an example because, but unfortunately, a lot of my culture has been influenced by it. I don't like religion, but he said, "Do unto others as you would have others do unto you." This is not, by the way, not the first person to say this. Jesus, a lot of earlier pagan beliefs also said this, but this is a way of teaching people how to understand ethics, right? How to, well, would I want to be treated in this way? And by using this principle, we can reflect a lot more and understand a lot more about how we should treat each other versus, well, we should be fearful of God and we should remember the rules. No, that's not how you understand ethics. That's how you teach a toddler who cannot understand ethics, or a dog. Honestly, that's how you. Yeah, that's not even how you teach a person. That's how you teach an animal. Animals are taught on the basis of punishment and reward. You can't explain to a dog, "Don't pee inside. I have to clean it up." You explain to a dog by showing them, "This is bad. I'm punishing you for doing the bad, and I'm rewarding you for doing the good." Um, but of course, I guess, yeah, tragically, I think. But the hearts of those who disbelieve are oblivious to all of this and have other evil deeds opposite to this, which they are engrossed. Yeah, I'm not fearful of God. That should be clear. But as soon as we seize their elite with torment, they start to cry for help. Not really true in my case, I think. They will be told, "Do not cry for help today. Surely you will never be saved from us. Indeed, my revelations were recited to you, but you used to back away in disgust." True. Boasting of the sacred house and babbling nonsense about the Quran by night. Interesting. Presumably implying that I did it in secret, which I think is very clear. I mean, I do babble about nonsense about the Quran, but I do it at night as well. Today is daytime, um, but I have no idea what the sacred house is all about. Uh, but I think this implies more this sort of secretiveness. Think it's very clear that I do not place any secrets on what my views are. I speak only what I feel to be true, what I know to be true. That's what I'm coming from. Is it because they've never contemplated the word of God? Clearly not. Or because there has come to them something which that did not come to their forefathers? What? Or because there has come to them something that did not come to their forefathers? Or because there has come to them something that did not come to their forefathers? Do you mean like better understanding of the reality? Yeah, that's true. I mean, I think what it's implying is that all of our forefathers got all of these revelations and they were given these proofs by their own destruction, which isn't really good proof, let's be clear. Moses gave proofs, the other ones clearly didn't give proofs. Um, but it's a weird phrasing. Because it's a weird phrasing because there is something which hasn't come to our forefathers, and that is we do progress. We stand on the shoulders of giants. We make progress. Like one of the uh, main driving forces of the Islamic Golden Age was their ability to actually go, you know what, these Greeks they did some useful mathematics. Let's use that. Let's build upon that. So let's make it better. Let's make it understand it more. And then we took took all of the ideas of the Islamic Golden Age and built upon those, and then we build upon the old ideas. And part of building upon these old ideas, interestingly, is not respecting them. You don't respect, you don't show reverence to ideas. You engage with them critically and examine them. And by doing so, you gain a better understanding of what they actually meant and how to use the things they learned in your own life. Or because they failed to recognize their messenger, so they denied him. Presumably, yeah. Or because they say he is insane. In fact, he has come to them with the truth, but most of them are resentful of the truth. In fact, he has come... Literally, this is the whole of the circular reasoning nonsense. In fact, he has come to them with the truth. Well, in fact, he hasn't come to them with the truth. Words are cheap. He is insane. All of them are insane. All of the prophets are a little bit insane. You have to be a little bit insane. Genius and insanity are very close by. This is what I'm saying. Why we should, what I'm saying when I'm saying we don't show respect to great ideas in the West. And a lot of people have been like, oh, you're rejecting scholarship, you're rejecting sort of the wiseness of the people. Yes, exactly. I'm rejecting the approaching this information, approaching what other people have thought, approaching great wisdom, great genius with this sort of uncritical gobbling of it, just swallowing it, just memorizing the things that other people... If you want to be an intelligent human being, you actually have to engage with the ideas. In order to actually engage with the ideas, you actually have to be able to be critical and be negative and be... Because, let's be clear, this is the understanding that I have, that I see so many in my comment section don't have. The understanding that I have is that what's happening here is I'm being critical of what I have in my head. I'm reading this, and something is appearing in my head. And this thing that is appearing in my head is negative, and I'm criticizing it for being negative. But it is only in my head. It doesn't necessarily mean that this is exactly what God wants. It means I still think my interpretation is reasonable. I still think I have basis for interpreting things the way I do. But the understanding that we shouldn't... when you read a great philosopher, a great wise man, you don't go, well, he was so smart, therefore I should trust him. You go, I don't understand. What is he saying? That we shouldn't... Is he saying that democracy sucks? Is he saying that we shouldn't be free? Is he saying that everyone should be slaves? Is he saying that gay people should be stoned? Right? Are they saying these evil things? And by trying this, by actually engaging, I think I'm engaging my brain more when I read the Quran than all of these people who insist that memorization is the same as understanding. And this is a good proof of this, because if you just memorize, in fact, it's true. It's like, says who? Says you? You're telling me that what you're saying is true? Go fuck yourself, honestly. Tell me why. Don't tell me in fact. Answer the criticism. He is insane? Question mark. Is he insane? It has a question mark. Is he insane? Are you insane? It's like, well, actually, no, I think this because this and that and that. You don't go, in fact, I'm telling the truth. That's insane. That is insane. That deserves the criticism. Had the truth followed their desires, and the heavens, the earth, and all those in them would certainly have been corrupted. What? Again. Oh, their desire that the universe is more than one God. I see. That makes sense. Apparently, that's our desire. My desire is that the universe has no God. Zero. See? I know that there are all these other fingers, but not. Zero. Not even one fist. None. I'll hide from the camera if that helps. There are no gods. That's what my desires tell me. That's my reason, as I usually describe it. That's what my emotions tell me, especially when reading this. I don't think... This seems very much to be the words of somebody living in a world where there is no God, not where there are many gods. But apparently, if there were many gods, those of them would be corrupt. It's just one of those moments where where it's like, I'll argue against you. No, actually, you're talking about the pagans. You're talking about the pagans again. Why are you always talking about the pagans? Are the pagans the only ones who disbelieve in you? Is that the only thing you have? The only way that it is possible to reject the word, like Islam is, oh, actually, if you believe in other gods. No, no, no. Zero gods. No gods. Reject the concept of divinity altogether. That's what I'm suggesting. Not that we should replace this god with some other god. In fact, oh, good, good, good. Anyone who tells you that they're telling the truth probably isn't worth listening to. We have brought them the means to their glory, but they turn away from it. Or is it because you, what? In fact, we have brought them the means to their glory. We have brought them their glory, but they turn away from it. I'm sure if you insist it's true, it must be true. Or is it because you, O Prophet, are asking them for tribute, but the reward of your... that's a Freud. No, it's not a Freudian slip. It's showing your true colors. Like, well, actually, it might be because I'm demanding tribute. It might be because I'm conquering them and demanding them pay taxes to me. So of course they resist me because I'm the conqueror. It's like... yeah. But the reward of your Lord is the best. Sure it is. So you should pay me money because you'll get rewards in heaven. Is this not just as ridiculous as televangelists saying, I need my third private jet because if the other two are broken, then how will I get to the places I need to go? It has the same line. God will reward you for helping me be richer than any of you. It has the same vein as that. I know the truth of God. I'm coming to you. Like, this is what he's saying. Muhammad is saying, I'm coming to you, preaching you the truth of God. You should pay me money so that I can continue preaching the truth of God. Greedy son of a bitch is what we get there. And surely you're calling them to the straight path. Surely. But those who disbelieve in the hereafter are certainly deviating from that path. Yes, certainly. How could it possibly be otherwise? Even if we had mercy on them and removed their affliction, they would still persist in their transgressions, wandering. Wow, blindly wandering was wandering blindly. There was a famine that affected the pagans of Mecca. Okay, so their affliction would be famine. Or would still persist in their transgressions. Yeah, it makes sense. Okay. Seems like it's such a non-statement, honestly. They would still... I mean, I guess it makes sense to me because I'm translating this to non-negatively charged language. Right? Because they would still persist in their transgression, wandering blindly, implies the necessary truth of what... Like, oh, they're just rejecting the truth of what I'm saying. But if you translate it and say, well, they're going to continue believing the things they believe, which are different to what I believe. That's what the informational content of this sentence actually is. If you remove all of the emotional weight, all of the baggage of the phrasing, it's simply, well, will they not continue believing what they believe? Even if I remove their affliction? Yes, of course, 100%. It may be even more so, because there will be people in their midst who say, well, actually, I spoke to God and he gave us this test and blah, blah, blah. Or I spoke to this and that God or whatever, right? The people, like the same criticisms I have given to the Quran earlier in the sort of the prophets and their proofs, this can be leveled at the pagans right now, right? Same criticism is, of course, they would continue and of course they would even confirm their own delusions. I guess this is where me and the Muslims are really best buds when it comes to arguing against other gods. But yeah, no, not surprising. I think, yeah. Try and do that more. Try and do that when you read anything, even especially Western literature, especially journalism. I very much recommend that, whether you're Muslim or not. translate the text, avoid to like, if it has emotional baggage like this, you can include it. What's the emotional baggage means is beliefs that are different than ours. So will they persist in their transgressions? Well, that means will they continue to believe what they believe even though it is different than what we believe? And if you remove this and make it a neutral statement, it doesn't seem so very impressive. And the same thing happens a lot in journalism. A lot of people are very good at using emotionally charged language to try and obfuscate reality for you. And I think this strategy is a very helpful thing in the modern world. And we have already seized them with torment, but they never humbled themselves to their Lord, nor did they submissively appeal to him. Do not kneel to tyrants. Tyrants bleed. That is their purpose, to suffer at the hands of the oppressed, to be the symbol that unites us in rebellion against them. That is the purpose of tyrants. So in my sense, I've shared this interpretation before, if there actually really is a God, he's giving us these texts to test us, true, but he's giving it, the test is, are you capable of rejecting them? Are you capable of rebelling? Are you capable of actually being standing up for yourself? Or do you just want to be a slave? Do you just want to be an animal? Because this book seems to imply that we should be animals before God. We should simply be like dogs, where we are whipped into doing what we should do, whereas we are humans. We have the capacity to, we can be a little bit better than that. Might not be able to be as great as God or as great as the angels, but we can certainly strive to be better than the animals. Than the other animals, to be clear. I know that a lot of people, religious people, don't seem to understand evolution by natural selection for some reason. But as soon as we open for them a gate of severe punishment, they will be utterly desperate. He is the one who created you for hearing, sight, and intellect, yet you hardly give any thanks. Yet this is so frustrating, because your intellect should prevent you from simply giving crude thanks. Like, shouldn't just, like, a dog should be grateful for his master teaching him right from wrong. A human being with intellect, with understanding, with hearing, sight, and intellect, who can see and understand the world they live in, this kind of person should actually critically examine their own beliefs. We don't have time to waste simply giving thanks. We have so much to learn, so much to understand. Why waste time praising God when we have so much of the universe to explore, so much to understand, so many things we do not yet know, but yet we hardly give any thanks? Yes, we do hardly give any thanks, and that's a good thing. And he is the one who has dispersed you all over the earth, and to him you will all be gathered. And he is the one who gives life and causes death, and to him belongs the alternation of the day and night. Will you not then understand? Will you not then understand? By stating natural laws, by stating, life happens and death happens after life, and there's a day and a night cycle because the earth rotates, and the rotation of the earth belongs to him. It's simply stating the belief, right? And the implication here, will you not then understand? These sort of suggestions, after, which happens a lot, it happened every time. It's given all of these statements of, well, this is how the natural world works, and the natural world works this way because God made it work this way. Will you not then understand? Is this not good science? It's like, no, of course this isn't good science. The natural world would work that way even if there was no God. Even if this was completely random, even if there were infinitely many universes, all of them infinitely exploring all of the infinite different possibilities, even if that were the case, then we would have the same phenomenon. We would see exactly the same thing. We would see exactly what we do see. Even if it didn't belong to anyone, even if the alternation of day and night didn't belong to anyone, it was simply the rotation of the earth. So, will you not understand the celestial mechanics? Will you not understand that the rotation of the earth happened because of the spinning of the solar system, the disk of the solar system, and the protoplanetary disk that formed us. Like, we have better understanding than the people did at this time. Will you not understand? Will you not seek this understanding? Because this book tells you that it's because of God. Yes, and that's exactly why I say that faith is the end of reason. As soon as you have God, as soon as you've inserted God into the gaps of your understanding, into your own ignorance, and pasted a label of God over your own ignorance, pretending to yourself that you are not ignorant. In fact, you know the truth. Once you've done that, you cease to explore this ignorance. You cease to try and limit and reduce this ignorance, because by doing so, you would be limiting and reducing your concept of God. And that's a tragedy. That's a real tragedy for reason. But they just say what their predecessors said. Okay? Not true at all for me. I mean, I guess it's true for the pagans. As always, he's talking about the pagans, unfortunately. They said, once we are dead and reduced to dust and bones, will we really be resurrected? Will we really be resurrected, is how they said it. We have already been promised this, as well as our forefathers earlier. This is nothing but ancient fables. Very good said. Very well said. Ask them, O prophet, to whom belongs the earth and all those on it, if you really know. To no one. No. And then they will all say, even though I answered completely honestly without reading it forward, they will reply to God, no, they won't. Proof me. It belongs to no one. The question makes no sense. Possession of the thing isn't something that anyone has. Nature is owned by nothing. But yeah, if indeed they believe in God, but also reject resurrection, then I guess this might make sense. Maybe then it makes the argument make sense. Maybe if all of the people who were critical of religion were pagans, this would make sense. This is one of the reasons why I think maybe all of the prophets were really atheists, because they mainly seemed to be arguing against religious people. Where we agree so much. We're so on the same page. There are all of these gods, they don't exist. We agree on all of that. If you think of the whole of the spectrum, I'm going to try and move my hand so that I can, agree with the whole of the spectrum. I go, well, most of these aren't gods. Which one is it? This one. But this one does exist. This is where we disagree. All of the other ones we agree on. We agree that none of these are real. This is where we disagree. This one God is apparently real. I don't think so. And ask them. Oh, a new one. Oh, let's see. A new rhetorical device to counter me. And ask them, who is the Lord of the seven heavens and the Lord of the mighty throne? No one. There are no seven heavens and there is no mighty throne. They will reply, God. Say, will you not then fear him? Okay. Ask them also, in whose hand is the authority over all things, protecting all while none can protect against them, if you really know? No one. No one. And if you really know, maybe that's the problem here, right? Certainty is bad. Having certainty is an illusion. You are fallible humans. You should understand this even in the context of your holy book, even in the context of getting true revelation from God, which has to be accurate by definition. Even if that is exactly the case, you are human. You are human. We are all human. We all make mistakes. All of the mistakes you think I've made in reading this, it is equally possible that you have made mistakes of your own while reading this. Maybe not so much of a mistake that you come to my conclusion, but understanding that nobody really knows, that should be really, really important for you to be able to critically examine your own beliefs in general, not just specifically about religion. They will reply, God, how are you then so deluded? Well, I mean, I guess it's not about me, so who cares? In fact, we've brought them the truth, and they are certainly liars. Certainly, because I say so. And they say I'm a liar, but they're liars because I say so. God says what I say. And they say that God says what they say, but actually God says what I say. Do you not use your reason? God had never had any offspring, nor is there any God besides him. Otherwise, each God would have taken away what he created, and they would have tried to dominate one another, would have taken away what he created. I don't think that's true. But they would definitely have tried to dominate one another. That absolutely happens in all pagan religions. Glorified is God above what they claim. He is the knower of the seen and the unseen. Exalted is he above what they associate with him. I guess. I guess if I don't associate anything with him, I guess it's weird because in a way I do agree, right? It's if I associate nothing, like God is peerless in my view as well. Like in my interpretation of this, God is peerless. He's just also non-existent. Say, O prophet, my Lord, should you show me what they are threatened with? Meccan pagans, yeah. As always, the stupid Meccan pagans. What? Honestly, I wish I could go back in time just so that there could be at least one atheist. Not just pagans for him to argue with. At least one atheist, and not just people who already believe in the supernatural. Because it's weird also, because what they say implies this is nothing but ancient fables. This implies that they don't believe in any of it, but then apparently they believe in God. And it's like, maybe this is one of those shower discussions I mentioned earlier in another episode. It's like, it seems like Muhammad is arguing against a creature of his own creation. I was like, these are accusing me of not telling lies, but actually they really, honestly, they believe what I believe. They just don't. They're just stupid, right? It seems to be what he's saying. Guess that makes sense. Surrounded as he was with ideas. Okay, my Lord, should you show me what they are threatened with? Then, my Lord, do not count me among the wrongdoing people. Only if you show me what they're threatened with, though. Very good critical thinking here. We are indeed able to show you what we have threatened them with. Oh, okay. Show me, not just tell me, show me. Respond to evil with what is best. We know well what they claim. Their claims are there are many gods and the prophet is a liar, a poet, etc. Yeah. Madman, liar, philosopher, poet. Philosopher, I think, is the most likely. Obviously a poet as well, but 100% a philosopher. Like when... let's make a clear point. It is possible to be a decent philosopher who talks about God, and I'm going to use a weird example who's not technically a philosopher. Einstein. Albert Einstein had this great quote, God does not play dice with the universe. It was him criticizing quantum mechanics. To be clear, God probably does play dice with the universe. It appears so based on quantum mechanics. However, it might still not be. But this idea of sort of using God as a rhetorical device, as a literary device, is absolutely reasonable for a critical thinker, for a philosopher. I very much believe that this was written by a philosopher and then perverted by literally everyone who followed him afterwards. Say that the Quran hasn't been corrupted for 1400 years. I say it was corrupted immediately. Immediately, as soon as the words left the Prophet's mouth and entered through the ears into the mind of another person, that's when it was corrupted. That's how fast it happens. Human beings are like, we use words unless you use words interchangeably and change how you phrase things, you can often pretend to know things, pretend to understand things you don't. This is why also tests don't have us memorize things. We learn how to solve problems. We don't just memorize things. Respond to evil what is best. We know what they claim. Yeah, sure. And say, my Lord, I seek refuge in you from the temptations of the devils. And I seek refuge in you, Lord, my Lord, that they... I kind of like this one, so I'm going to read it again. And say, my Lord, I seek refuge in you from the temptations of the devils. And I seek refuge in you, my Lord, that they even come near me. When death approaches any of them, they cry, my Lord, let me go back, so I may do good in what I left behind. Never! It is only a useless appeal they make, and there is a barrier behind them until the day they are resurrected. Yeah, meaning, you can't pass. If you're dead, you're dead. Fun fact. Fun fact. Again, we agree, but we don't agree. We agree up to a point. We agree that It's true. You're dead. You're dead. But I just don't believe you got resurrected. For some reason, that's a, that's arrogant of me. Then, when the trumpet will be blown, there will be no kinship between them on that day, nor will they even care to ask about one another. The day of judgment, yeah, yeah, yeah. Ha! So the trumpet blows and everyone dies, and it's blown a second time. Everyone will be raised from the dead. I'm assuming that's well. We haven't gotten to it yet, but remember the passage about suckling babes being dropped and pregnant mothers giving birth early. Everyone busy with their own situation. Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking as well. Actually, I want to believe that if this happens, I will not. I will actually care more about the suffering of the people I love. But in the principle, I'm saying, I'm making it very clear. If I am ever face to face with God, I look forward to showing Him exactly how little respect He deserves for how He treats his creation. As for those whose scale is heavy with good deeds, it is they who will be successful in the afterlife, presumably, because clearly not in this life. But those whose scale is light, they will have doomed themselves, staying in hell forever. I've heard this one be contradicted again and again. It's it's a weird, fascinating thing. Is it seem like I hinted this earlier that it seems like Muslims who are proselytizing seem to want to present a very strong position, and never having nuance, never any uncertainty, um, and always take whatever position they think will be most persuasive to me. Clearly, not understanding that the position that is most persuasive to me is critically examine your own beliefs. Having doubt. That's the position that is most persuasive to me. If it is shown to me that Muslims genuinely have genuinely experience doubt in all of give me a Kierkegaard, somebody who I haven't read him for a very long time, so I'm not sure how accurate my assessment here is, but somebody who genuinely struggles with their faith, somebody who shows me that their relationship to God in this world of nuance is a troubling, difficult journey. Somebody who doesn't lie to me just because then I might profess belief, because professing belief, if you say the words and you don't believe the words, then you shouldn't be proud of that. And making other people say the words while not believing the words, that's not something you should be proud of. And to gain understanding, you have to understand the difficult journey. The difficult, even if you view it, I'm on the crooked path, right? To cross over from the crooked path to the straight path, there's a lot of wilderness in the way. You need to cut me some slack, mate. You need to understand that this is how most people experience their relationship with God, as a difficult journey. And it should be a difficult journey. And the people who have told me that no, hell doesn't last forever in Islam, they clearly told me that to sort of mollify me when I was critical of this idea of eternal punishment. Eternal punishment doesn't make sense. To flip it around, if you have eternal reward, eternal punishment, if you have eternal reward, any finite suffering doesn't really make sense. To me, it's a good answer to the problem of evil. This idea of an infinite reward. But if you also have an infinite punishment, then you run into the same problem. You run into the problem of what possible sin, like how many billions and billions and billions of years can someone suffer before it actually makes up for whatever finite sin they have done. Like if the scales are genuinely weighted and not just an arbitrary simplification for people who don't understand the nuance of ethics. The fire will burn their faces, leaving them deformed. Well, I won't be worrying about that anymore, because I'll be only being deformed is everyone else's problem. I don't get to see myself except now when I'm looking at my camera sometimes. It will be said, where were my revelations not recited to you, but you used to deny them? Yeah. They will cry, "Our Lord, our ill fate took hold of us, so we became misguided people." I will definitely not say that. "Our Lord, take us out of this fire. Then if we ever return to denial, we will truly be wrongdoers." I will definitely not be saying that. God will respond, "Be despised in there. Do not ever plead with me again." Wow, God is really a piece of shit. I mean, like I've said earlier, with this abuse of God idea, it makes sense. If you genuinely believe that God is this despicable, then this sort of uh, fanatical praising of him makes sense. But this respect that is demanded for your religion makes sense if you genuinely believe that this evil being, this monster, is this tyrant God rules you. If that's what you genuinely believe, then everything makes sense. But oh my God, I am so terrified of what you're going to do in the name of your tyrant God. "Indeed, there was a group of my servants who used to pray, 'Our Lord, we have believed, so forgive us and have mercy on us, for you are the best of those who show mercy.' But you were so busy making fun of them that it made you forget my remembrance, and you used to laugh at them." I do. "Today I have indeed rewarded them for their perseverance. They are certainly the triumphant." Right, okay. "Indeed, there was a group of my servants who used to pray, 'Forgive us, and you are the best of those who show mercy,' and I'm praising him. You were so busy making fun of them that it made you forget my remembrance." Yes, I'm true. I mean, I did. Not exactly true. I do reflect on this idea of it being actual true. It's one of the great things about having an open mind is you can flip between different positions and be like, "Oh, I see that from that perspective. Oh, I see that from that perspective. Oh, that's from that perspective." But if you only have the one perspective, then it's very, very hard to understand what I'm doing here. But it is also much more fun for me because I do laugh a lot at you, you specifically, you who are watching this. I'm laughing at you, and I hope you're laughing at me too. "Today I have indeed rewarded them for their perseverance. They are certainly the triumphant." He will ask them, "How many years did you remain on earth?" They will reply, blah, blah, blah. They will reply, "We remained only a day or part of a day. Compared to the length of misery their stay in the grave and hell." Yeah, okay. Yeah, and this is good. This is good because this implies what I was saying earlier. Like the finite is so small compared to the infinite. So why this idea of staying in hell forever is obviously an evil thing. But if you have like the finite will always seem much smaller than the infinite. We live for like an average like 75 years or 77, I don't remember, so 80 maybe now. If assume we lived for 100 years, after 100,000 years, how long does 100 years feel? It's like it's like a tenth of a percent. It's such a small part of the whole of the thing. So it makes so much sense to understand this, that the sort of it cannot be like the worldly life would seem like an instant. After 1 billion years in paradise, how short would that feel? And also in length and misery of their stay in the grave and hell. Again, in the context of like presumably of the day of judgment coming in a long time, it makes sense. You've been in the grave for a long time. But so it's a useful thing to stress mathematically, but ask those who kept count. He will say, "You only remained for a little while, if only you knew. Did you then think we had created you without purpose, and that you would never be returned to us?" Yeah, that's exactly what I thought. "Exalted is God, the true King. There is no God worthy of worship except him, the Lord of the honourable throne. Whoever invokes besides God another God, for which they can have no proof..." Yes? Come on. One more step. Just one more step. I know you can do it. If you just put your mind to it. One more God. Just get rid of the one more God. They will surely find their penalty with their Lord. I guess you aren't. Indeed, the disbelievers will never succeed. Say, O prophet, "My Lord, forgive and have mercy, for you are the best of those who show mercy." Well, yeah. I mean, honestly, we're getting back to the point where I'm bored. There's a lot of parts in religious texts where I'm bored. I was hoping, it's such a good introduction. It makes me so eager. Like, what are the proofs? What are the disbelievers will be punished for their arrogance and derision. And the believers, several proofs are given of God's oneness and His power. Which ones? What? God's oneness and His power is stated several times, but that's not proof. That's not how proof works. Like, not even mathematically, where it's basically how proof works, where you just state it in a sufficiently logical way, then it is a proof. But literally, what we are given is a statement that God is only one, that there is only one, and whoever invokes anyone else will be punished. Like, the proofs, if there are any proofs in this text, in this surah, if there are any proofs, they are, just as I said earlier, only proofs by punishment. That is the only proof we get, the proof by the threat of punishment. Unfortunately, again, we are proven that yours is the abusive God. And that's today's episode over.